Hello. Well,
Hey.
we are so excited to be here. This is our first day in this lovely city. I know you're marketers from all over the world. We are from a little town called Eugene, Oregon.
But it is the home of the Oregon Ducks that are sponsored by Nike. So we're kind of Nike U and we win everything. In any case, our being here today is just so crazy. We were in touch with Natalia because we have been EO speakers around the world, and one thing led to another, and boom, here we are. So I'm not sure exactly what our cutoff time is. So I'm going to look at Natalia because we never have spoken for 30 minutes in our life. That's sort of what we had today, minus 15. So maybe, well, we'll figure that out.
So Susan and I are a working married couple for many decades. And we met in college at the Pennsylvania State University, where we got our doctorates in communication. And we have been working around the world, as Susan said, and one of our favorite topics is conflict. And by the way, when you talk about conflict, you'll see listening comes up once again.
We are actually, Peter was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York, and I was born and raised in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And the only reason we live in Eugene, Oregon now is it was our first faculty position out of our doctoral program. And during our time in Eugene, Oregon, and for those of you who haven't visited Oregon, really, really put it on your bucket list, our research has focused on mastering leadership communication. And specifically, our body of research looks at what are the specific, concrete, measurable nuts and bolts skills that leaders need in order to master communication. We know we only have a breath of time to be with you today, but we would like to share what we believe are the main takeaways. So meaning, in the very small amount of time we have together, we would like to share with you what can you do, and again, actionable behaviors, to really magnify, to increase, to enhance your leadership communication. Now, we will begin with the biggest elephant in the room, which is we love conflict and we know most people don't. I mean, let's be real, right? Conflict can be unpleasant and unproductive. You've been there. It damages relationships. It makes problems worse. So it doesn't take long for people, even leaders at the highest position, to do whatever they can to escape conflict. Barack Obama was a conflict avoider. Some of the greatest leaders you know are, but then they figure out a path. Because really, when conflict doesn't work for us, it's because we're unconscious as we navigate through it.
But when you become conscious in conflict, you can expect three rather remarkable outcomes. Number one, you can solve an important problem. Number two, you can strengthen a key relationship. And three, and this one is really hard to believe, you can actually deepen trust as the result of getting into a conflict. And we're going to show you how that can actually work.
So before we share our takeaways, we are going to do a drama for you. We've discovered that the best way to really learn about conflict is to see conflict.
So we're going to have a fight right in front of you. And in this fight, I am going to be a CEO. Susan is going to be a CMO. And the argument will take place in my office. I will be at my standing desk on my computer when Susan enters the scene. You are all just kind of flies on the wall. And when it's over, we'll talk about what happened here.
Now, we are doing this scene to show you that prototypical conflict, the kind that we live in every day, does not solve the problem, strengthen the relationship, or deepen trust. So let's see why.
So this is in good communication. We should start there. Okay, so here I am. By the way, I really do have a standing desk in my office. I'm at my standing desk. Susan will come in to speak to me.
Pete.
Yes, Susan, what seems to be the problem?
Well, I can see you're a busy guy, and so am I. So I think I'll just get right to the point. I won't sugarcoat anything. If I may, I'd like to be very direct. You are sabotaging my leadership with my team. Okay? There it is.
Susan, with all due respect, I see your lips moving, I hear sound coming out, but right now I get no meaning. I'm sabotaging.
Okay.
Susan, you're one of my key people. I need you to function at a really high level. Sabotage makes no sense.
Okay, so let me be more precise.
Please.
You allow a constant stream of people who are upset with me to moan and whine and complain to you. You don't send them back. You don't bring me in. You don't even tell me it's happening.
Have you ever stopped to ask yourself, Susan, why your people feel a need to be talking to me about problems they're having with you?
Yes, I have.
And
Don't take this personally. You seem to have a psychological need to be everybody's savior. You have to be the one riding in on the white horse, making everything okay.
Susan, the reason they don't go directly to you is they're afraid of you.
Oh, please.
You make them feel small. They tell me that they try to suggest ideas and you
Pete,
thwart them.
Pete.
Let me just finish here. They tell me, Susan, that unless it's your idea, it has no value, that you're not willing to innovate unless it's yours.
So let me tell you the kind of mixed messages you are giving me, and I think the entire organization. On the one hand, you're saying we need to prove we're making a difference. We need to drive our metrics. We need to show that what we do matters. And then you say, make everybody happy, make everybody's ideas count, make everybody feel engaged. It just doesn't work that way.
Well, Susan, you got to give encouragement also.
Forget it.
Wait, let me just finish. It's not just about metrics. I mean, these people, they're going to leave. We've got some very good people who are on the edge because you're not giving them any encouragement.
Forget it. I knew this is exactly what was going to happen.
You knew what was going to happen.
I knew I was going to come in here, try to share my feelings with you. I knew you were going to get completely defensive.
I did not get defensive. And I stood here, I listened to this stuff you're putting out to me, Susan. I'm just disagreeing, that's all.
Okay, well then let me just say, I tried, and I feel enriched, I feel heard and understood, and now I am ready to go back as a motivated member of your team. So thanks.
Susan, wait. Before you go, let me just say one more thing. My door is always open.
And off they go into the rest of their lives together. Now, is there anyone in here that would vote and say the problem is solved, the relationship was strengthened, and trust was deepened? Clearly not. And I think you can get a feel for what we mean when we say we were both unconscious. We were just in our own zone with our own message without any listening or interaction. Now, let's talk about a different way. When we talk about negotiating conflict, what are some actionable moves you can make in 30 minutes from now when we leave each other on those issues that are most important for you to negotiate through?
Now, before we get into the actionable moves, though, let's talk about a notion that Susan and I have been researching for a while now. We call it lag time. You may not have heard of lag time.
Lag time is the amount of time it takes from the moment somebody sees a problem in your organization to the moment they speak up about it. The longer the lag time, the bigger the trouble you're in. because lag time leads to higher stress, wasted time, lower morale, and reduced productivity. So what are you going to do to get the lag time reduced?
And this is a big problem with leaders, by the way. I was pretty out there, but even slight moves that scare people increase lag time. In some of the countries we work, the lag time becomes so long the people never heard of it. The leaders don't even hear it until the person's ready to move on to another job.
The research is really scary on how little leaders hear about the bad news that's going on in the organization. That's about lag time. So now let's talk about what you can do to reduce lag time and totally increase the level of communication within your group. Okay, let's start with emotional literacy. Most people who have ever gone to even one communication course learn about something called I feeling. It's better to say how you're feeling than to accuse. So it would be better that rather than saying to Peter, you are sabotaging my leadership, you're undermining my credibility, to be able to describe my feelings. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. Our research on emotional literacy has convinced us of how nuanced this is. And not all feelings carry the same impact. So let's talk about what you can begin to be more literate about with regard to your own emotions and your ability to share them with other people. Let's start with combative feelings frighten. If people say, and it's common for someone to say, I'm frustrated, I'm angry, I'm feeling betrayed. Let me tell you the downside of combative feelings. They put the other person into a state of panic and fear. And when someone's in a state of panic and fear, they are not listening to what you want them to understand.
I can push back on this, by the way. People will say to us, now wait 1 second, Glasers. When I tell somebody I'm really pissed off, it's from the heart. I'm being sincere. And we say, that's fine. Just know they're not open and listening if you're scaring them.
So let's look at another option. Vulnerable feelings connect. If I had said to Peter, I'm feeling like an outsider on my own team, and I'd like to talk to you about that, the chances of him listening to me are so much greater than you're sabotaging my ability to be a leader on my team. Some of you, have any of you read the work of Brené Brown? So yeah, Brené Brown is the person who popularized this whole area of research into vulnerability. Vulnerability is powerful. The research on self-disclosure is unbelievable. Self-disclosure is the greatest predictor of relationship. Self-disclosure is anything I tell you that you did not know and you could not know if I didn't tell you. So if I say, I'm angry and I'm frustrated and my veins are popping, that's not self-disclosure. But if I say, I'm feeling like an outsider on my team, that is. And that vulnerability is an instant connector in a negotiation around conflict. Let's talk about another option. Some of you might say, Glasers, I can assure you there are people in my life I would never be that vulnerable with. So try neutral, because neutral feelings diffuse. Neutral are, I'm concerned, I'm confused, I'm curious. That keeps it at a level where we're still hearing each other. Positive feelings encourage. Imagine negotiating conflict and starting with, I'm feeling like an outsider on my own team, but I'm also so optimistic that once we talk, we can find a solution that's really going to work for both of us.
So you see, she puts a positive frame on it. It gives the listener hope. This is a difficult conversation we're about to get into, but there is a light out there.
And finally, and this is important, these are in the notes we're going to leave you with. Star this if you can. Thoughts are not feelings. Way too often people think they're doing a feeling description, but it's a thought. And here's how you can self-test for that. If you can substitute the word think for the word feel, It is a cognition, it is a thought, it is not a feeling, and it doesn't carry any of the impact that we've just described. Example, I feel you're not carrying your fair share. I feel you are turning my people against me. That is not a feeling because I could substitute the word think. So to summarize this emotional literacy, this is not an on-off switch. This is a life journey where you say, I don't just want to be literate in what I can read and write and count. I want to become literate about my own emotions. I want to be able to name them. I want to be able to share them with other people. That is the emotional literacy journey. Now let us give you a second takeaway. Pinpoint details. I don't know if you've noticed this or thought about it, but vague inflames, but specifics instruct. Red flag words absolutely stop the discussion. And I had so many when I said, you're sabotaging, right out of the boat. A word like sabotage, phew, he is angry, upset, panicked, and fearful. Finally, if we can specify the problem behavior rather than vaguely generalizing about it, we are now teaching them something. This is the educational move in the model.
So imagine if my character had said, Susan, let me give you a specific example of what I'm concerned about. Marjorie came to me earlier today, and she was shaking. I mean, she was almost in tears. And what she said was, I was so excited. I went to Susan because I was so glad that I finally got my client into Forbes magazine. I got one of his articles, and I was so happy. And you know what she said to me? She said, well, it was only on page 10, big deal. I felt so deflated. And that worries me, Susan, when our people feel that way. So going into a specific case in point is so clarifying and illuminating, and the importance of clarity, as your last speaker said.
This step is worth committing to, because many things in communication you can do right. But as soon as you try to describe a problem in vague, generic terms, you'll get yourself in big trouble. Because again, vague inflames, specific instructs, so avoid red flag terms and specify problem behavior.
Now this third one is the most counterintuitive move in any of our models. It's also the most powerful. The most powerful move you can make in all of human communication. Now, not power in the sense that it puts somebody into their place, but powerful in the sense that it really gets them to put their psychic defensive hands down and it lets the information in. So, Susan, if you were making a contribution to what and started your conversation with,
so
how would it sound?
So let's talk about how both of our characters might say, hey, listen, I'm not trying to put this one all on you. I know I've contributed to this issue. I know I've contributed to this problem. I might say something like, clearly, I am sending signals to the people on my team, even though it's not my intention, that it's not safe to talk to me. If they felt it were safe to talk to me, they would talk to me and not you. And I need to figure out what I'm doing that's giving them impression and how I can make it feel safer.
Now, even if we're both angry, how do I even push back on that? I mean, when somebody is owning their own accountability like that, it kind of pulls the bottom out of resistance. I mean, what's my character going to say here? Oh, no, you don't, Sue. This is my problem. I want it all. Doesn't make sense. It's ridiculous. And my character, what could I say? I could say, Susan, and I can see how I have been giving you mixed messages, because I told you that the moves you make in this company really need to be, we need to see, they need to be counted. We need to be able to see them. We need to see how it affects the ROI. So I've been giving you mixed messages too. So imagine if we moved into our own accountability, suddenly we can hear each other because we're not feeling threatened. We're feeling like we're in a conversation where both people are sharing their vulnerability.
And over the last 18 months, we've done some research just on this step. And we learned 3 things. And so I want to tell you what they are. Number 1, this step is powerful, but only when you make it obvious. It can't be subtle. It needs a drum roll at the beginning, something like, and I really want you to know, I get that I'm part of the problem too. So I need to introduce it in a big way. The second thing we learned about the impact of this step is avoiding excuses. It is so easy to ruin the impact of sharing your contribution by making an excuse. Here's what that would sound like. Peter, I know that I'm part of this problem too, because there's something I'm doing that's making people in my area not feel safe. But if we're really going to live by metrics, everybody has to commit to that. It just washes away. So it needs to be an excuse-free zone in step 3. Finally, consider duration. There's a very interesting effect in our field. It's called the duration effect. It literally means how long you spend talking about something tells the other person how important it really is to you. So if in step 3, I say real quickly, like I'm going to do this in 3 seconds. I know I'm part of the problem too, and I really should have made my area more safe to my people. There's not enough duration there to create any essence of meaning. So we just learned that in the last 18 months and wanted to pass that on to you because step 3 is powerful, and it's more powerful when you use those 3 aspects.
This even works with teenagers if you have them at home.
And finally, what we believe when you're negotiating conflict, co-create your solution. And what this means is both people need to get to say what they want the solution to look like, and both people need a job to do when the conversation is over. So how do you co-create a solution? Here's a real quick roadmap to co-creating a solution. Number 1, an open-ended question. How can we work on this together? The rest you need to prepare for. Specifically, here's what I can do. Peter, I can meet with my people. I can ask them to share with me. What can I do to make it a safer place for them to communicate concerns? Then, Peter, is there anything else you'd like from me? That's the time for the other person to make their stamp on the conversation. And then, finally, I get to say what I want. Peter, it would help me if you would do X. And the more specific I can be with my ask, the more specific I can be with my request for behavior change, the more likely I get what I want. If I say at the end of this negotiation, and what I'm asking for you is nothing but courtesy and respect, what is that? What does it look like? How do we know it's happened? But if I say what I'm asking of you is if people come to you with concerns about me, please ask them if they've told me yet. And if they say they haven't, please tell them how much I want to hear it from them. And if they say they don't feel safe, can't we talk together? So that level of specific concreteness allows something big to happen.
So there you have it. You can line up all the conflicts in your life, one after the other, and take care of each of them in about 90 seconds. And you know that's not true. And the reason it's not true is because of what we call the 51% principle. This is one of the most subtle aspects of human behavior and persuasion. The full title of our recent book is Be Quiet, Be Heard, The Paradox of Persuasion. Because it's a paradox. You're listening, and this was not said in your last speaker, but let me say it here. When you really listen, the odds are that person is going to be listening to you. And so you become more persuasive. Aristotle put it this way. The fool persuades me with his reasons. The wise man persuades me with my own. That's where we got the title of our book, by the way, Be Quiet, Be Heard, The Paradox of Persuasion.
I want to say there are many places to give the other person their 51%, but I'm going to give you the most counterintuitive. When somebody argues back, when somebody objects, when somebody tells you you're wrong, that can now be a little bell that goes off in your head. Oh, it's an objection. That must be, I get to give them more talk time. And you can do that in much the way we were doing it in our last presentation. Asking open-ended questions. Can you tell me more? Is there anything else I should know? What are some of the things about how you think that most people don't understand? To ask open-ended questions that give that person their 51%. And really, when we say 51%, if you had a timer and you actually timed talk time, the person who talks most comes away with pretty incredible outcomes.
They feel better about the conversation. They feel better about the other person. And catch this one. They feel more committed to whatever problem solution comes out of that. All of those benefits come from giving that person a little more talk time than you put in yourself. It's a pretty subtle but amazing effect.
Now, you want to hear the best news of all? You don't have to get it right all the time. You don't have to get it right even most of the time, because a do-over can be healing. A do-over means you have a bad scene, just like the one Peter and I had. And a do-over is going back to the person. In this case, it could be either of us initiating the do-over. Hey, Pete, I've been thinking about the conversation we had yesterday, and I am completely bummed by it. I know I can do better. I'm so disappointed with how I communicated what I was wanting to share with you. Would you be willing to let me try again? We have witnessed some of the most profound interactions resulting from do-overs.
Yeah, sometimes we think it's better to do a do-over than it is in the initial conversation, because it really allows the other person to believe she's been thinking about it. In this case, it really bothered her, and now she wants to really make it right between us. It's a very powerful move. And the good news is we make mistakes. We do put our foot in our mouth, and this is a way we can fix it.
So it's been a very quick run through the Glasers breakthrough communication. And one of the things that's crazy is that the hallmark of our work is interaction.
Right. And I'm sorry you sat there and hadn't listened.
In fact,
but here's a chance now. Of all you've seen, what would you like to know? Would you like to ask us anything about?
And I do want to say one other thing, because I think, are we on the 2-minute warning? Okay, then I'm going to do a different thing. Instead of what would you like to know, I really want to say that we've committed to Natalia and Maria that we're going to hang out. And please write down any of the following: questions you have, observations that came to your mind, and if something we said covered you with, "Are you kidding me? How could you think that's possibly true?" We really want to hear that too. So we'll be around for the rest of the day, and we'll be around for dinner, and we'll be around for dancing. Please, please talk to us about that. And if you would like to stay in touch with us, we do publish a weekly research-based, we call it our communication capsule. It's a research-based tip on communication at work. And you can read it in 2 minutes, but we always share the original research in a link. So for those research wonks, you can see where it originally came from. So instead of just saying, do you have any questions? I think we will say, I cannot believe that we have been known for our work on interactive learning, and we want an opportunity to have that with you. Hopefully, in this brief time, you can remember some of our main takeaways. And the reason we put it in a handout, thank you, Maria, for making that happen, was so that knowing it was coming fast, you could also take it away.
So thanks for sitting out there and listening so well. You were at least watching. I assume you were listening. All right. Take care, folks.
Thank you. Take good care. Thank you.